Hello YouTube, I'm here with another video for you guys with EVE Online. Today we are going to talk about faxes, which are capital ships used to remote rep other capital ships and even subcaps. I'm going to kind of go into the two different mentalities when fitting up a capital ship or a force auxiliary. And I am going to also give you guys some hints for keeping your fax alive and or how to deploy it on grid without it just getting killed and not being useful. Because we love faxes, we love what they do. They are useless when they're dead. So let's get right on into it. So first we'll go into the fittings, I suppose. We'll go ahead and go over this screen here. I have a personal preference towards the Minakawa. This thing is a behemoth. They are very strong reps. They are very tanky. And like all four of the faxes, I suppose I should go into the four faxes. So if we hit Alt-R and open up our marketplace, and then we make it so it shows all items, we hit the little arrow here and make sure that we have only available unchecked. It becomes a quick encyclopedia of the game. Anyways, we can go select ships, we can find capital ships, and then we can find force auxiliaries. All four races have one. The Amar have the Apostle, Caldara have the Minakawa, Galente have the Ninazu, and Mimitar have the Lif. Lif and Ninazu can rep both armor and shields. They have bonuses towards both, and they have an active rep bonus. The Apostle and the Minakawa have a shield resistance bonus and are specifically for armor or shields. So the Minakawa is shields and the Apostle is armor. And then they also get a bonus to capacitor transmitters as well, whereas the Ninazu and Lif have bonuses to their local stuff instead. So they have bonuses to their shield boosters rather than the resistance bonus. And so they got armor and shields and same thing. Anyways, a stronger local tank, stronger buffer, energy transfer, can transfer both shields and armor. Kind of how it goes. It's a lot like Technology, the subcaps, like the Basilisk, Scimitar, Guardian, and why can't I remember what the Mimitar one is? What is the Mimitar one? We're getting on into a tangent. Anyways, they kind of follow the same mentality of their lower brothers, which is logistics. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say about the ships as a whole. There's two mentalities when fitting these ships. The first mentality is as much active tank as possible, and that's what this fit that I'm flying has been inspired by. This isn't an official doctrine fit, as I'm not allowed to share official doctrine fits, so I put something together myself, and this fit is inspired by what Horde recommends. However, it is not a Horde fit. It is not a recommended fit. And if you're flying a fax, I would highly encourage you to look towards your alliance or your leadership to what kind of fits they want you to fly, because they have more experience than I do, and they will give you the fittings which they prefer. This is my special blend and what I would prefer to fly. I am not given SRP for this, and this is how I fly my Minakawa. So there's active and buffer. Active assumes that you're going to be in siege and that you'll be able to deal with the DPS incoming, and is generally preferred versus subcaps. When you're fighting against capitals, you tend to prefer a buffer because capitals will shred an active fit like nothing. This is an active fit. It's got dual shield boost amplifiers, a Concord shield booster, a capital ancillary shield booster, and some capacitor boosters, and then some hardeners. This thing will tank 10 dreads with no problem. This thing will tank 50 bombers with no problem. It'll tank a lot. And the fact that it tanks a lot makes it pretty cool. That's really the only thing it's got going for it, is that it can tank a lot. Other than that, it is a fax. It sends reps. The standard rep range of a fax is about 30 kilometers. When you simulate siege here, you'll see the range goes up a little bit, 27 to 63. So within 30 kilometers, they have full reps. After that, it falls off as you approach the 63 kilometer from 30 to 60. The rep power falls off. So fax's rep range is roughly 30 kilometers. Whereas if you remember, the Technology, the subcaps have a 60 kilometer range. So faxes have less rep range than subcaps. That's kind of their weakness. Things have to be close for them to work. They don't work in a big spread out ball. They need to be kind of tight, and that's really their big limiting factor. So yeah, this fit is just basically to support the to have the 3 armor reppers or the 2 armor reppers. Is it 3 or 2? It's two shield reps, a ancillary shield rep, and then some command bursts, and the siege is really all that it has. So it does its job, and it can run. Since we're simulating this with this off, and this off, and this off, it can run plus 73 cap with 1 booster running while siege, and then out of siege or in siege running both of its reps for the entire siege cycle. It lasts 4 minutes and for 4 seconds, which is almost the entire siege cycle. And then if it's not sending reps and it's worrying about itself, it can actually keep itself running just over 5 minutes, which is the critical amount of time. Because if you start your siege cycle, you need to be able to run your rep the entire siege cycle. This thing can run its entire siege cycle. So when it does go into siege, it will be able to run its rep all 5 minutes. That's kind of like a thing that you do, because you always red cycle your triage. So you activate your triage and then you hit the button again and you red cycle it. And what that will do is once you've expended your cap, you'll be able to come out of siege and another fax will rep you up. Because a siege fax is extremely powerful, can tank a lot of DPS, and can send a lot of reps. However, it cannot receive reps while you're in siege. So you need your local tank to survive long enough that when you come out of siege, the other faxes can save you. That's just kind of how it works. They take turns saving each other, and it takes a lot of cooperation. You can see Rooks and Kings with their carrier video. I may go dig up that video and link it, or you can search Rooks and Kings carriers. But what they did is they juggled carrier's capacitor with its partner, and they took turns repping each other and repping themselves, running a local and remote rep, and then going back and forth. And that's kind of how faxes work nowadays, where they come in pairs. You have 2 faxes, right? So one goes into siege and starts repping everything, and the other one sits out of siege, and then they swap places because one expends all of its cap, expends all of its resources, and then it needs to recharge for 5 minutes, and it's got 5 minutes to recharge itself and get back on the plate, while the other one covers its gaps. So they really work good in pairs or in large groups. Is kind of how they function. But when you siege, just like with any other thing that sieges, Marauders, Dreads, and anything with a siege button, once you've activated the siege module, you cannot receive remote reps. And the reason that we're making a fax video is because faxes are very complementary to Rockwell's, which we covered last week. So this guy's job is to keep others alive, and it has staggering rep power. 69,000 HP, or 6,963 HP every 4.2 seconds while sieged. And Savior implants do not affect this. So Saviors will not reduce this down to like 3 seconds. But 4-second cycles with 6,000 reps, that's like both of these is entire battleship's health every 4 seconds, basically. And then it's got an ancillary as well, which is also fairly strong. So that's pretty nifty. So there's another method of fitting this, and that is for max tank. So I can't show you my NC fitting, but what we can do is I can show you guys the mentality of putting together a buffer fax. And so I'm just going to take off all these active modules because it's going to be a buffer. I think that it might be better to have, actually, I don't know, we'll take that off too. So the idea behind a buffer fit is that, again, it has enough cap to run its remote reps for 5 minutes. So it can come out of siege, receive some cap, and then come back into and go back into siege. Generally, this guy will also fit a cap transfer for cap transfer things. But basically what we do is, instead of going for crazy amounts of active rep power, we go for as much buffer as possible. And that's because active reps hold no power against things like dreads. A bunch of dreads will tear through it, and supers will pretty much alpha fax off grid, so reps don't really do a lot. So what you do is, instead of doing the standard damage control, we go into hull and armor, and we will start with a anti-capital hull and armor. Where's it up? Damage controls. And we will do a capital emergency hull energizer. What this does is it increases your resistances for a short time. So when you do get red boxed, you'll activate this, and then it'll give you a few million EHP. And then we're going to go not reactor controls. I think we can get away without those. And then we're going to put on, actually we do need reactor controls. Look at that. We're already out of power grid. We'll go shield extenders. We'll go ahead and throw on 3 capital shield extenders. We are shy by about 39 HP. And then we could probably put on an EM hardener, and that would give us a really solid HP of 6 million. So now instead of just dying when we get sneezed at by capitals, we'll actually survive quite a bit. And I'm thinking that we can go shield, and then my lowest resist is probably EM. A capital flex might be a good idea, but they require a lot of power grid. So I'll go ahead and put a shield hardener on here. May as well go Pythomex type. They're only 100 million ISK and give me an extra 300k health. And then I think we're over on power grid by 40%. I think power diags can fix that, and that will give us additional shields. So we'll go ahead and go engineering, equipment, and power diagnostics. And throw 3 of those on. We're over on CPU. We're not quite fixed. So we'll go ahead and switch these over to reactor controls until we get enough power grid. So it looks like we need 2 reactor controls, and then we need we're over on CPU, but we're not over on CPU. We're over by 3%. So this fit would require a 3% CPU implant. That's okay. And then for the shield rigs, we can go ahead and go shield, or no, rigs. We need rigs. Rigs, and then shield. I'm just kind of throwing this together live real quick. This probably isn't an advised fitting. And then since it's a Tech 1 capital, or not a Super 1, Tech 1 extenders would be doable, because Tech 2 extenders are like 500 million ISK. But you could go Tech 2 extenders and spend an additional 1.5. But the idea behind this fit is that it's going to die when it gets attacked, and you're just trying to buy as much time as you can per cost. So you want the ship to remain cheap and able to do what it does as long as it can when it takes defense. And it's just basically EHP that isn't Supers or Titan's EHP, basically. So it's as much buffer as possible is the idea behind a buffer fit. And these are really only used when you deploy supers and super caps, and you're expecting super and super cap opposition when you go full buffer fit. So you'll go full buffer when you know the thing's going to die, basically, and you go active fit against subcaps is kind of the methodology. So now I'm going to give you guys some tips for flying these things. Now that you guys know the 2 main ways of flying them, you can fly on buffer and active. Of course, I'm going to assume that you have flown Logi and subcaps before, and you know how to fly Logi. You know how to read your broadcast history for reps. You know how to use your watch list to lock important targets and make sure that they're locked. So tips when responding to a say you are in an umbrella of some kind. So say you're in the goon, the horde, or the frat umbrella, and you're a response member that is jumping in to save your friends. There are some tips that I have for you to save your facts in those situations so that it can survive for the next drop. Tip number 1, before you undock, before you even think about saving anybody, make sure you have fuel. You consume cap charges and fuel whenever you are running your ship. So make sure you have Straunt. If you do not have Straunt, you cannot triage. And when you have your triage tech 2, you're going to consume 75 Straunt a cycle. This gives me 5 cycles, or 9 cycles, 8 cycles, something like that. I don't quite have 10 cycles worth of Straunt in here, but normally I keep some extra Straunt in there or in the ship maintenance bay. This one is not properly fueled. Actually, I have 375 here, so I think that's 5 cycles. And then I have fuel to jump, right? Because you need fuel to jump. I think max range you end up using, I think, up to 15k isotopes in a single jump. So you need at least 30k to come back, if that makes sense. You should carry extra in case you go further or have to go a second jump. So carrying enough fuel to go to wherever you may be going, and then carrying enough Straunt to be able to siege for a while. So I carry extra Straunt in my fleet hangar. and then I have fuel here to jump to, and then Straunt already loaded, ready to activate the triage module. So the second tip is whenever you're jumping to somebody, you add that person to your watch list, and then you right-click and jump from your watch list to your target rather than right-clicking your capacitor and then saying jump to and then finding their name here. Because what you can do when you find your name here is, one, you can accidentally, if you're used to flying other ships with conduit, you can accidentally activate conduit and screw things up. And there's a bunch of ways that this can go wrong, where right-clicking from your overview and jumping just kind of works, and it's a lot harder to mess it up. So it's harder to mess up jumping from your watch list than it is jumping from your capacitor menu. That's the number one tip. Make sure you jump to the right place. Make sure you jump to where there's trouble, so that your friends will be with you and you're not alone. That's tip number one. Tip number two is, upon landing on grid, the first thing I always do is I like to lock up the Sino, because if I keep that Sino alive, more friends can come through the Sino. So the first thing I always lock up is the Sino. I lock up the Sino, I land reps immediately on the Sino. I don't triage right away. Triaging right away can be a bad thing. When you have a bunch of people jumping to a single Sino, because the Sino is only so big and ships are kind of big, there's a chance you will be the one that gets bumped. So when you have a bunch of ships jumping in the same place, all the capitals will start to spread out because they're bumping each other away. If you get bumped at 500 meters a second and you hit triage, you're going, by the end of the triage cycle, 5 minutes later, you're going to be going 400 meters a second in that same direction. You will drift right on out of fax range. You will go further than 30 kilometers, I promise you. And if you drift out of fax range, you're dead. That's how they kill a lot of faxes. So the first thing you do, lock the fax, control space, stop your ship. Try not to drift. Then you get to make the decision, do I triage or not? Depending on the situation, triage is the right answer to do. If you are trying to save something and what you are saving is almost dead, your fax should be worth less than what you are saving. Siege it and save the thing. But if you're landing on a dread that's about to break and that dread hasn't come out of siege yet, you sieging and trying to send reps to it isn't going to do anything except put you in danger, because now they can kill you, because if they can kill siege dread, they can kill you. So you are now in danger as well. So you don't want to siege too early. Generally, FC will give a command to siege, or your buddy, your one other, because remember how I said faxes in pairs, or like to come in pairs. You and your fax buddy will take turns going into siege, so you need to communicate with them whether or not it's time to go into siege. Sometimes you have to make that decision yourself, and it may be beneficial to ask the FC in chat, should faxes be sieging upon landing, and if they say yes or no, you generally know. Before you even right-click to jump, you'll know if you're going to come in and siege right away. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. If it's against something smaller, so say you know that it's not going to escalate, you generally won't siege, so you can leave grid earlier. But sometimes if it's something scarier, like there's 100 bombers floating around, and you're trying to save a super, then you're probably going to be sieging right away to save the super. That's just kind of how it goes. It depends. But not sieging until it's time to siege is really important. And then also remember, when you activate your siege module, you have more than enough fuel to run it more than one cycle. You always red cycle your triage module. Alternatively, you can make sure set auto repeat is set to off. I find it more reliable just to double click it and red cycle it. You can always turn it back on, right? So if you drop out of siege because it was red cycled, you can always make the decision to hit the button again and turn it on after the cycle. However, if you are green cycle and you go around the full revolution and you get to the end and you realize, oh shit, I should not have sieged, you'll go into the next cycle and you're going to die. That's the number one way faxes die, is because they don't come out of siege to regenerate the cap and or get remote reps from additional fax. That's the biggest tip that I have for you, is do not green cycle your siege module unless given the order to. I always red cycle because you can always click it again. You can always fix that. The next big tip is manage your cap properly. As you're sending reps, as you are repping yourself, and as you're doing different things that consume cap, if you manage your cap correctly, you can buy yourself additional tank to survive longer. and could keep your facts alive longer than you would have otherwise been able to do so. So proper cap management is another big one. And then let me just read through my notes here really quick. Jump through watch lists. If you bump, hit control space. Um, always triage red when told. If getting shot, you should triage immediately and broadcast immediately triage red. Oh yeah, so if you start getting shot while your triage is green, immediately go red and broadcast for reps. And then focus tanking until siege ends. If you're the one being targeted, other things won't be taking damage. So you can focus on your own tank and focus on yourself because you're the one taking damage. If you've been broadcast as primary and you're the one taking damage, nothing else is taking damage. So you focus purely on yourself, communicate to the FC what needs to be communicated to. As I said, make sure you have enough cap boosters, make sure you have enough fuel, make sure you have enough strunt. Anytime you dock your fax, refuel it, replace all of its cap boosters, make sure it's ready to go next time. Refill it when putting it away so that when you take it out in a hurry, you don't forget. That's a big one. And then, yeah, that's really all I got. Like it's just like Tech 2 Logi, except it's a big toy. And you've got to fly it right and be mindful of your siege cycles. They jump just like other capitals. They land big reps. You will save your friends. They're fantastic things to own and fly. And that's really all I get for you. I know that this was kind of a ranty video, and I winged it mostly. But yeah, and it's kind of dense, and we kind of went through 2 fitting ideas, and we kind of talked about it. But faxes save things. They're big ships. They're cool. They do a lot of cool things. Remember, fax range is 30 kilometers. It's 30 kilometers. If you're lighting the Sino to have the faxes and super save you, make sure that you warp into 30 with your Sino. So if you are flying the Sino ship and you're the one lighting the Sino, hint, hint, people in Pan Crab, hint, hint, do it right, please. I don't want to see more things die. Make sure that you're warping within 30 or less. That way the faxes, when they do land, will be able to rep your thing. If you're on the other side, if you're on the receiving end of the save. If you are on the saving end, make sure you're not getting bumped away from your friends. Make sure you are red cycling your siege so that you don't end up dead. And fly fun. Make sure you enjoy your faxes. They save things. They're kind of content denial. They're fantastic toys when they get deployed. They're a lot of fun. Join your local super umbrella. Participate in saving your friends. Make sure you guys fly fun. Enjoy your time at EVE Online, and I will see you guys in the next one.